More emails involving Hunter Biden and his foreign business dealings could soon be released, but this time, whether they see the light of the day is up to the Biden White House. The National Archives recently sent a letter to the Biden administration saying it's prepared to release almost 300 emails that mention Burisma. It's the Ukrainian energy company where Hunter Biden served on the board from 2014 to 2019, and which paid him up to $50,000 a month. The White House now has 60 days to decide whether to try to stop the release of the emails by invoking executive privilege. And according to Insider, which was one of the first to report the story, quote, the Biden administration is refusing to say whether it will allow the release to go forward. Now, the response from the White House is going to be interesting because of how hard Democrats have gone after Donald Trump for his attempts to invoke executive privilege on, well, just about everything. Remember, Trump took the archives to court and lost over whether they could release certain documents he claimed executive privilege over in connection with the January 6th committee. Part of the court ruling on that was based on President Biden rejecting Trump's claim of privilege when he wasn't the sitting president. The documents are part of the archive's response to a Freedom of Information Act request filed by an organization founded by former Trump advisor Stephen Miller. Republican pundits and political leaders have long questioned Hunter Biden's involvement with Burisma during the time his father was vice president. It's a fact that as VP, Joe Biden pressured Ukrainian officials to remove Ukraine's Prosecutor General Viktor Shokin as part of a crackdown on corruption in that country. Shokin later claimed his removal was political retribution for having launched an investigation into Burisma. But it's also become clear that Shokin was ousted with the support of many United States allies because he refused to investigate corrupt companies, potentially like Burisma. Look, Hunter Biden's presence on the board clearly shady, gave more than an appearance of conflict, clearly had no relevant experience for the position. So far, despite an investigation by Senate Republicans in 2020, no evidence has emerged specifically on Burisma of impropriety or criminality by him or his dad. Hunter Biden is being investigated for a host of other possible crimes in connection with other deals and on tax issues. But if NARA is allowed to release these emails, they could shed new light on these claims, or at least how the White House intended to handle them. It's not clear exactly what details the documents contain. The letter from the archives to the White House counsel gives us a little bit of insight. It says, quote, several of the email messages are press inquiries regarding the announcement of Hunter Biden joining the board of directors of Ukrainian energy company Burisma in May of 2014, and the Office of Vice President's responses to those inquiries. There are also email messages containing news articles compiled by White House staff, which include articles referencing Hunter Biden and his role with Burisma. Now, of course, this all comes as House Republicans, with their new majority, have announced plans to pursue numerous investigations into his business dealings and even whether Joe Biden acted inappropriately in his political capacity to help his son. And a document dump by Elon Musk of the Twitter files has shed new light and stoked new controversy on how the social media giant handled the Hunter Biden laptop story when it broke just before the 2020 presidential election. Now, the stakes are high for the White House and for Hunter Biden. So, will he invoke executive privilege? Can he? How strong is his legal argument to do so? Let's check in with national security expert and attorney Bradley Moss. Welcome back to the show. Appreciate it. All right, so first let me ask you from a legal perspective, would President Biden have a strong argument as to executive privilege on these documents?
So based off what we've seen in the reporting, what you had just described, there's at least a non-trivial argument to be made that executive privilege could apply to these email responses where you're going back and forth between the press office and Biden's office at the time he was vice president. So there is an argument to be made that this reflects communications between the vice president, his staff, and other members of the White House in terms of how to respond, what the position was going to be in the vice president's office. He could argue that. What remains to be seen, aside from whether or not he can, is there any real reason to do so here? I mean, this has been a cloud hanging over him since 2019. It was part of the reason, it was the reason Donald Trump got impeached the first time, was this stuff tied to Hunter Biden and the Burisma stuff. So is there an element to which he might want to err on the side of transparency here and say, go ahead, call my bluff?
Yeah, but here's the thing. Here's the thing, Bradley. It's a lose-lose for the White House. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your cable provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.